This is a bit of a weird one, but ever since I rewatched Edge of Tomorrow a few months back, alternatively titled Live, Die, Repeat, based seemingly arbitrarily on your geographical position, I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. It's a fine film, a pretty fun take on the whole Groundhog Day thing, but I guess the discussion about that film since its release has been the thing that stuck with me. Thanks to that aforementioned central time loop scenario, whereupon Tom Cruise's character respawns, so to speak, after every gruesome death, I distinctly remember seeing it frequently being described as the quintessential video game film, the mechanical reality of the interactive arts brought to the big screen in a way that goes beyond what actual adaptations like Doom and Resident Evil tried and miserably failed at. But the question that's got me is this: okay, if Edge of Tomorrow is a video game movie, then what type of video game is it? It's daft, I know, who even remembers this thing? But bear with me here as I just try to figure out my own thought process. I think there's an assumption based on the aesthetics of the film, the militaristic bravado and high-tech weaponry butting up against an intruding alien force, resulting in a cavalcade of gunshots, lasers and explosions that, combined with the loop of dying and respawning, that people associate it with a kind of action shooter framework, seeing as it released during the heyday of games like Call of Duty utterly dominating the video game market. I mean, he's fighting on a beach for Christ's sake, even if it's not specific to Call of Duty, as that series has moved on to more modern conflicts. The storming of Normandy has been featured in basically every single shooter claiming to be either true to life or historic or grounded in some way. And even as those games progressed into the modern era, you started to see things like time to kill get lower and lower, respawns become more and more instantaneous. In the same way, Cruz is suddenly jolted back to the barracks to redo everything to relive his entire day all over again. And that is just it. I think it's more complicated than just saying Edge of Tomorrow is a shooter precisely for that reason. Cruz's character may be respawning in an instant, but not on the battlefield. He's shot right back to that panicked stage hours before the actual invasion, where his fraudulent claims of war heroism have landed him right in the thick of it, with the higher-ups and infantry alike. Every go-around, he has to convince people of his situation. He has to get them on side. He has to make sure his equipment is working properly. He has to avoid getting killed in the barracks long before he's even made it to the battlefield, where things could still just blow up in an instant, necessitating Cruz's repetition of the entire hours-long process over and over again, just for one more shot at that crucial moment. What's more, the actual beach segment in question takes up a shockingly small portion of the film's runtime, as the scale, the scope of the challenge before Cruz vastly increases with each new nugget of information he attains. By the time Cruz and his eventual crew have navigated the critical path to solve the larger alien problem, the storming of the beach seems like a distraction more than anything else. To survive it, to hit the correct combination of steps to make it to the end of the beach battle Dragon's Lair style would feel like a hollow victory. It wouldn't solve the larger problem. It'd be an ending, but maybe one where you'd suspect there were other paths you could have gone down to achieve something more substantial, more satisfying. An alternate ending, perhaps. You see where I'm going with this? Edge of Tomorrow isn't a shooter, it's a time loop, a puzzle game. Way more important than conserving ammo or throwing the right grenade at the right time, Cruz's game is mainly one of navigating social dynamics, importantly in the most time-efficient manner possible. And to that end specifically, the film, being just a couple of hours in length, mercifully takes the whole process of getting back to that war-torn beach and cuts it down for time, creating humour out of Cruz's situation, as the terrifying enormity and absurdity of the task at hand, with Cruz attempting to find any way to progress even slightly, eventually gets repeated so much that it becomes straight up mundane. You know, you don't need to repeatedly see the preceding hours leading up to this one increasingly stupid and frustrating death blow, but your brain intuitively makes the connection that all these steps, all this lead up to that moment is indeed all happening. Such is the nature of film editing. It's all about conveying that passage of time without always having to show you said passage. And sure, I mean technically you do respawn and relive certain events when you die in Call of Duty even, bolting from the spawn point back to the action, or in the campaign, getting from the checkpoint back to the bit you died at. But you wouldn't really call it a time loop game, so to speak. speak. You know, there has to be a greater emphasis placed on, again, time passing. See, for many games that we would probably describe in that way, the ones that do mess with the time loop as a central mechanic, hell, even most point-and-click adventure games revel in that monotony, that tedium that comes with carefully re-examining the minute details of every step taken to see if there's a stage in that puzzle you might have missed. It's precisely how they stretch out a movie-length plot, let's say, into what we might consider more quote-unquote reasonable for a game. These titles don't utilise montage quite as widely as film might, because being a video game, they want you to, in some way, inhabit the character you're playing as, the situation they find themselves in, right? In the best examples of the genre, however, they might introduce a means by which, should you have happened upon a momentous discovery in your last go-around, you can bypass the steps needed to get to that place in the story again, giving you more time to explore the implications of that major plot revelation. The Forgotten City did this extremely well, with you erupting from a time portal to bombard this hapless individual with information beyond their knowledge, their existence, their experience of time, only to suddenly demand he sprints around the town informing everyone else so they get straight to the particular branch of the dialogue tree you want them to be at. I guess you could say that the Forgotten City's errand guy is the equivalent of Edge of Tomorrow's use of montage. And you see, this is what I'm getting at. This is a film that I've seen described as the military shooter brought to the big screen, resembling the over-the-top technology and frenetic bombast of the futuristic Call of Duty games, and yet here we are talking about it, in my mind more convincingly, in comparison to the Forgotten City, games like Grim Fandango, Broken Sword, and this phenomenon of categorizing games with terms like shooter, point and click, first versus third person or whatever, is a phenomenon I've seen described, I think most notably by Extra Credits back in the day, as a failing of the games industry to more evocatively describe types of games beyond simply what you do in them, the perspective you play from, etc. You wouldn't call this moody drama film a close-up talking, so why do we call games first-person shooters? But the longer I've sat with that argument, and it has been many years now, the more it becomes apparent to me that with games being as technical, as tactile a medium as they are, when in essence you are that camera perspective, when what you are doing is the emotional content of a piece of art, say, I think more mechanical categorization makes some amount of sense. And to argue otherwise, to say they're doing it this way and that's what we need to catch up to, is to play into the long-tired legitimacy argument of games versus film or books or whatever. After all, we talk about things like woodworking in those terms, the medium an artist is working with, and yet that description doesn't preclude them from creating some truly incredible, moving things. You've heard this time and time again, but games are their own medium, and as such, I think it's perfectly fine, hell, necessary, to have our own bespoke ways of talking about and describing them. Plus, you know, with Edge of Tomorrow's growing focus on Tom Cruise's character saving someone else with their own personality, who will follow your orders to a point but do occasionally go off script as a result of their agency, with Cruise exhaustedly choosing to get it over with and die to repeat the process should something inevitably happen to said character, as to continue on otherwise would limit Cruise to the less satisfying ending, I think it's pretty obvious that the type of game Edge of Tomorrow is in fact an Abe's Odyssey-like. Thank you, I won't be taking any further questions at this time. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, all that daft YouTube stuff. It really helps the channel and it means the world. A massive thanks as well to my patrons, who you can see on screen and are all getting access to exclusive, fully produced videos that aren't available here. Your continued support is what allows me to keep going with the work I do on this channel, and I seriously cannot express how grateful I am for that. You are all the best. Special thanks go to Mark B. Writing, Artyom Vitsyuk, Michael Tritt, Alex O'Sullivan, Rickety Cricket, Cameron Siniceros, Don McLean, Urban Cheese, Charles J. Liu, Alistair Dunn, Vitautis Catharsis, Dolly Bowman, Young Condor, David Karstens, Tom Webster, Danis Sikauskis, Jordan Midler, Christopher Faherty, Nicholas Villeneuve, Yogesh Deshpande, Joe Lanzone, Leah Chinello, Captain Knussbrick, Dylan Robinson, Bryce Snyder, CPJ MLT Limited, David Björk, Newen Palacios, Timothy Jones, Carl Christensen, Matthew Grover, Shardfire, Lynn Browning, Dallas Keane, Charlie Kimball, and Charlie Yang. And with that, this has been another episode of Writing on Games. Thank you all so much for watching, stay safe, and I will see you all next time.